Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Spoiler Sunday video. So this is the time of the week where I take a look at all of the spoilers that happened this past week and, well, talk about them. So even though this is going to be a light spoilers week, we still have a lot to unpack based on the Digimon that we have shown and the Digimon that these cards are going to be interacting with, because as the game grows and expands, there's just more that these cards can do. So starting off with a new Digitama, we have a new version of Gigimon. So the interesting thing to note is that Digital Hazard, or EX02, is actually going to be having Digitamas where Classic Collection, or EX01, didn't have any new Digitamas at all. So we're probably going to end up seeing a Digitama for Terriermon and Renamon that's going to be interacting with their lines, just because this Gigimon is going to be interacting more specifically with the Gallantmon line. So what this card is doing is it has a nice inheritable skill of when attacking once per turn. If this Digimon has Gigimon, Growlmon, or Gallantmon in its name, then we get to draw one card. So this is a really good card to be using for that line, just because, well, Red doesn't necessarily have the best ways of drawing cards, and it's still lacking in the card draw department compared to some other colors, but cards like this definitely help shore up that weakness. And on top of which, this card has just lots of synergy because, well, we have lots of Gigimon, Growlmon, and Gallantmons that this card could be interacting with, new and old. So the first thing that comes to my mind as an alternative way to use this card is in like Security Control or Mega Zoo style of decks, where you could just use this paired up with the promo Gigimon that we got in the dash packs to basically, when attack, draw 2 cards. So that's really good levels of card draw for just a level 3 swinging already. And then on top of that, it just interacts nicely with all of the Growlmon and Gallantmon stuff, because they just want to swing anyway to trigger some of their abilities off. So I think this is going to be a pretty good card as a whole to be using, not only just for the early game, but for some mid to late stages of the game as well, making it one of the better draw Digitamas to use based on some of the cards that we have to be playing with. Next, we have a new version of Growlmon. So even though this Growlmon stat-wise isn't doing anything too special, it does have 2 abilities that are looking to be pretty good, one native to it and one as an inheritable. So the ability native to it is kind of why the Gigimon is looking to be pretty good, because it's a when attacking ability where you get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 2000 DP or less. Then if we have a red tamer in play, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less instead. So this is really good because, like I said, paired up with the Gigimon, it's actually an ability that's incentivizing us to attack, so that way we could not only get the card draw off of the Gigimon, but we could actually try to delete the opponent's low-level Digimon to mitigate and control some of their field relatively early on, which is a really good thing. And then on top of that, it has a nice inheritable skill where it's kind of acting similar to the old Growlmon from BT02, where it's a when attacking ability, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less, as long as this Digimon contains a Growlmon or Gallantmon in its name. So the BT02 one only just generically deletes 2000 DP or less, but this is a little bit stronger of an ability because it does have a restriction attached to it, needing a Growlmon or Gallantmon to be above it. But the fact that it's just utilizing a more continuous control style approach is just what Gallantmon does as a whole, because Gallantmon is a deck that just wants to kind of control and delete the opponent's Digimon for its own benefits. Next, we have a new version of WarGrowlmon. So no shocker here, we get a fully fleshed out line of Gigimon stuff. We already saw the Gallantmon, we already saw the Gigimon, now we have the mid-level Digimon, so we know what the full line is offering in the set. So what this WarGrowlmon is doing is it has 2 abilities, one native to it, one inheritable, and the ability native to it is acting very similar to the Growlmon we just saw. So it's another when attacking ability, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less. Then if we have a red tamer in play, we get to delete one that's 6000 DP or less instead. So again, this is a really good card to pair up with the Gigimon that we just saw, because it's actually still incentivizing us to attack to try to delete some of the opponent's Digimon that are on the field, and the inheritable ability is also really good. That's more specifically going to be paired up with the new Gallantmon, but it could still work with some of the old Gallantmons also, where the inheritable skill states that during your turn, the maximum number of DP on the effects that delete your opponent's Digimon is increased by 1000. So this just helps the older Gallantmons extend their reach on the Digimon that they could delete, and this paired up with the new Gallantmon just helps him delete even stronger Digimon as well, because he'll also increase the destruction abilities by 1000 DP on his own. So it's just looking to be a pretty good card to be interacting with Gallantmons as a whole, and a lot of various red cards as a whole, because this isn't referencing that it needs to be under a Gallantmon or anything of the sort. So I think this is going to be a pretty strong card, and we actually do want to try to attack with it, because one big thing to note about the card is it actually does have 8000 DP, which is at this point still a little bit higher than your average, but we are noticing this trend where a lot of level 5s are starting to have 8000 DP versus 7000 DP or below. So I don't know if this trend is going to keep continuing, but it is something to take note of, so that way we could actually properly assess how we want to use this card. So right now, this card also could be really, really good with the starter deck Gigimon as an example, where we could swing with this card, delete one of the opponent's Digimon, then the Gigimon will gain us plus 2000 DP, making him a level 5 that's swinging for 10k, which is pretty good as a level 5. So we just have lots of different ways to use this card already based on all of the stuff that we have, and we're probably going to be getting more red cards in the set, so he might even see some more interesting play based on the other cards that we get. And then the last card that we got spoiled this past week is actually going to be a new version of Megidramon. So this Megidramon is looking to be a pretty powerful yet pretty expensive card to be playing around with. Not monetarily expensive, just cost efficiency expensive. So what this card is doing is it actually is a two-color Digimon between purple and red, which is kind of what the old Megidramon was trying to do, except it didn't quite get there. But the fact that it could still be used in both purple and red is really, really good. It digivolves off of purple and red for 5, which is the really expensive part. So just getting up into this means that you're going to have means that there's a very high chance that you're going to end up passing your turn. But on top of it having a higher evo cost, it actually does have increased DP, making him just a stronger threat than he was before. And then this card has 3 abilities. So the first ability states that this card or Digimon is treated as Chaos Gallantmon. So this actually can mean that it goes very nicely into a Chaos Gallantmon deck, and it actually plays off of the old Megidramon, because the old Megidramon would be able to pull out this Megidramon, being able to make this card a little bit more efficient to play. I still think it's going to be a little bit harder to play as a whole though, but it's nice that it's actually treated as a Chaos Gallantmon, and we could actually start utilizing the Gallantmon based synergies with this card as a result. And then on top of that, it has a nice when digivolving ability, where we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 10,000 DP or less, and then if this effect doesn't delete any Digimon, then both players trash the top 5 cards of their deck. So it's acting very similar to the old Megidramon, where the old Megidramon just straight up, when we digivolved into him, just trashes the top 5 of both players' decks, to try to set up our Gallantmon-based synergies and make sure that the opponent has a healthy trash count for our own benefit, on top of the fact that we're trying to fill up our own trash for our own benefit as well. So it's just a pretty interesting ability to be playing around with, but the fact that this compared to the old Megidramon is actually looking to be a huge upgrade, because it is trying to interact with the opponent's Digimon, whereas the old Megidramon kind of wasn't. So that was the big problem with the old Megidramon holding him back, was the fact that he had limited interaction. So the fact that this Digimon can delete a Digimon that's 10,000 DP or less is pretty good, especially if we pair this up with the WarGrowlmon that we just saw, where now we could extend that to 11,000 DP or less instead, which is pretty good, because the difference between 10 and 11 is pretty huge on the level 6s that it could target and the different Digimon that it could target. So I think this first ability alone is really, really good, on top of the fact that it does have a nice on-delete ability, where we get to play 1 Gallantmon and 1 Takato from our hand or trash for free. So its on-delete ability is just being able to help spawn some Digimon as a reward for when it's actually deleted. We could pair this up with the Gallantmon from the Gallantmon starter deck to then try to warp into a Gallantmon right away with when this card is deleted, so it has some really good synergy there. I don't exactly know what Takato is going to be doing, So I think that Takato is going to be a very fantastic tamer to be using with this card as well. And I don't exactly know how expensive Takato is going to be, if he's going to be a 4-cost tamer, 3-cost tamer, or 2-cost tamer, but the fact that we do have ways to play him efficiently, especially from our trash for free, is really, really nice. So I think this card, even though it's going to be a little bit harder to use than some of the other cards we could play with, just because Gallantmon synergies already just want to play with, well, Gallantmons, this could be a really good card to put into Chaos Gallantmon and help the Chaos Gallantmon deck, or form a new deck based around him as a result. And that's it for the spoilers this week. Like I said, it was a pretty light week, only 4 cards to talk about, but we do know a little bit more on the Gallantmon stuff, and we could start fleshing out more Gallantmon-based synergies, and we could see what other red cards are going to be in the set, if they're going to be interacting with this or something else. And I'm excited to see what the rest of the set offers as a whole. So I know it was a shorter video, so let's just take a quick look at the US secondary market over on TCG Player. I know TCG Player isn't the best of tools to use, but it does have some value on just giving you some basic information. So we could see that the set is doing about as well as some of the other sets. Obviously, the big difference between the set and a lot of the other sets is it has a super high chase card, but keep in mind this chase card actually is a little bit more common than what we might be anticipating or realizing. So between all of the different marketplaces, TCG Player, Facebook, eBay, there's just a lot more of this card floating around, and as more and more people open up boxes and get their product, because we are getting a second wave, and people like me have yet opened up their cases, so there is just going to be more of this card floating around, so I think this card is going to settle realistically at around that $500 to $700 price range. Yes, that's still relatively expensive, but he seems to be on average in about 1 in every 5 cases. But outside of the big chase card, the rest of the set is doing pretty much as well as I expected. The best secret rare has the most money, which is sitting at around $93. That's about on average compared to a lot of the others on release. And then the secret that's also highly played is sitting around $40 for its alt art. Then a lot of the alt arts is just where the value of the set is. That's just always how it's been, but the alt arts this time around are holding a little bit better, a little bit longer than they normally would. But again, as more cards get added into the secondary market, as more people open up booster boxes, then the prices will just continue to fall. So I think if you just wait probably about a week or two, the prices will already start to fall, and then I don't exactly know when that second wave of BT06 is going to hit, but when that hits, then the prices will continue to fall again. So we already see that Bellastarmon, compared to a lot of the other like super played secrets, is already performing a little bit worse than some of the others. So this is currently only sitting at $36, where Lucemon and Omnimon's Work Defeat on launch were sitting at around $50 to $60. So it's not necessarily a bad thing seeing the cards get cheaper. It's just a little bit unfortunate if you're actually opening booster boxes trying to sell singles, because all of the money's in the alt arts and you'll only get 1 to 2 alt arts per booster box. Then we could see with the other secret rare being Alphamon, he is one of the better performing ones, just because, well, the played secrets are usually at around that $20 to $25 range. I've seen Alphamon go as low as $15, which I think is fine, but still, he's just a good card, and I think his price reflects that compared to a lot of the other cards. And then we could just continue to scroll and see that the highest value base SR is going to be Jesmon. That's no surprise, Jesmon has lots of hype, but he was sitting at a $5 low and jumped up to $10 just because people kept buying him and buying him. Then one of the cards that we do actually have to look out for is going to be Metal Mamemon. I do not think that $20 is worth the price of the alt art, just because the alt art actually did get an errata reprint, so this version, not foil, is the better version of the card, just because it's the correct version of the card with the same art. The only thing you're losing out on between the two is the fact that the foil version is textured, which is pretty nice, but it is the incorrect, but it does have the incorrect text on the card. And the way to get the not foil version is just to pick up a demo deck, and you're guaranteed to get one based off of the reprint or errata pack that's inside of the demo deck. So I do not think as a result this card should be $20. But if we just continue to see what the rest of the set is doing, we could see that the next best base SR is going to be Gabumon Bond of Friendship, which is sitting at about $5. It was sitting at about the $2.50 that Agumon Bond of Bravery was sitting at, but again, being one of the more popular and more played cards, people just kept buying it up, so as a result, he just has a higher price tag. But I think, again, as more stocking quantity comes in, his price will be lower eventually, but the fact that one of the best decks, best cards is only $5 just makes the game relatively affordable. It's just, again, unfortunate for single sellers trying to make any money on the box, because if they're buying the boxes at about $60, even $70, then you're still not even going to be breaking even unless you get really lucky with your top-end pulls, with your secret and alt art slots. And then we could continue to see that a lot of the base SRs are just absolutely getting crushed. So we already have Azulongmon and Titamon being two of the other more popular ones, only hitting at about 150, which isn't necessarily bad. Again, if you're just looking to buy the cards, build the deck, it's a really cheap and easy way to get the cards, is just buying the singles. But again, it makes buying booster boxes not worth it in the long run. So if it wasn't for the Chase Omnimon and if it wasn't for Bellastarmon, I don't think the set would be doing very good at all, and the set would be performing even worse than some of the other sets, especially since people were impatient and they couldn't wait, and they ended up buying a lot from other places and other regions, which added to our overall stocking quantity, meaning that there's even more of this set than some of the other sets in the past. So that's just one huge thing to think about, is just people imported, and now there's just more of those cards, and some of the booster boxes are also going to be going down in price, probably because they can't move the booster boxes, because people who would have bought them initially bought from other places in other territories. So one of the big cards we do also have to keep an eye on in the set is going to be the level 5 Eosmon, just because it's a common with the text that you could run any number of it. So in order to play an Eosmon deck, if you're looking to play an Eosmon deck, then you have to buy more of this card than any of the other cards, and as a result, that's just going to make it dry up a lot quicker. So it is one of the better cards to look out for and to pick up from the set if you're looking to play Eosmon. But as we could see, a lot of the other base SRs just are not doing well at all. Dynasmon, Genkumon, Skullgreymon, Eosmon are all under that dollar mark, which is, well, pretty bad. But again, it just makes the game affordable, which is, I guess, pretty good. And then if we just continue to scroll, we could just see a lot of the cards just, well, not doing very well, because there's just a lot of them, and, well, when there's a lot, that means there's no value. So we could see that Mamemon is the worst performing SR, being under a quarter, and, well, that's pretty bad, on top of, well, I guess the card is just a pretty bad card, and the fact that, like the alt art, it also has an eroded version, which the corrected version is just better, even though it's not going to be in foil, it's just, well, has the correct text on the card. And then we could see that a lot of the rares are just, well, doing normal rare things, and a lot of the cards just aren't holding a whole lot of value, because it's just really easy to pull anything you need out of the set. And then taking a look at the Dash Pack cards just to round out what BT06 is looking like, my assertions on how the Dash Pack cards would perform in terms of like how good some of them are is kind of correct. So we could see that the Gabumon is the best performing one. I don't think it's exactly worth the $30 that they're currently listing him at, but I guess based on the fact that we don't have the starter deck cards, he is a little bit more needed for the Gabumon Bond of Friendship deck, and that being one of the better decks, this being one of the better cards, just makes sense on why he would be this high. But again, he'll probably start cooling off once we do get the starter deck cards, and this card isn't as needed. And then we could see that with some of the other Dash Pack cards, Wizardmon is the next best performing one, because, well, it just makes a lot of purple option-based decks really, really good, like Lilith Loop and Plutomon. And then it's also a really good card for Metal Garurumon and Bellastarmon as well. So there's just a lot of synergy that this card has with some of the best performing purple decks. So it only makes sense that it would be the next best one. I'm actually surprised that Guilmon is above Kurisarimon currently, but I guess that people just are anticipating more hype around Guilmon, especially since now that we know that Guilmon is getting more Guilmon-specific synergy and support, it just makes it a little bit more appealing over Kurisarimon, which we know that even though Diabormon is getting some stuff in the Classic Collection, after the Classic Collection, it looks like the deck starts to stagnate. So even though I think the Kurisarimon is probably a better card in the short term. It looks like Guilmon is a better card in the long term. And then, as I knew would happen, Kudamon and Hercules Kabuterimon are just the worst performing ones, so that's not a surprise to anyone. The cards just aren't very good, and they kind of feel like they came a little bit too late for the cards that they're trying to interact with to matter. I don't exactly know what Kabuterimon was supposed to be interacting with, but I just don't think that it's a super good card in this current meta, and it definitely feels like it's something that should have came out earlier, along with Kudamon supporting Kentarosmon. So I think there's just better things for Yellow to be playing around with than Kentarosmon, but it's still just a cute aspect to think about, and the fact that these are relatively cheap promos means that you could get them a little bit easier than some of the other cards. But the fact that the Dash Pack cards are doing about as well as some of the other like Dash Pack type cards, if not a little bit better, just adds value to buying booster boxes, and that's the primary reason why you want to buy booster boxes. But we do also have to keep in mind that if the store is not shuffling around, the Dash Packs, then they do come in a particular order, so you could try to use that to your advantage to know what and when and how you should be buying your booster boxes, so that way you can guarantee that you're getting the cards that you want. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.